This is Hartford Whaler Nation. Welcome back to Whaler Nation TV, part 2 of this evening's discussion with Mark Wallon, president of the Connecticut Hockey Hall of Fame, and Peter Hindle from theexaminer.com. Mark, when you first got into the Whaler brand, New England Whalers, you spoke of this off camera a little bit about the New England Whalers and the tradition behind Whaler hockey. What can you tell us about that?
Well, coming from Boston, the Bruins, of course, were kings of hockey in Boston, and at that point, you start hearing about this new league called the World Hockey Association. The team comes into Boston. Meanwhile, the Bruins are losing players like Jerry Cheevers and Ted Green, John McKenzie, etc., Derek Sanderson. So you start to get a little bit of a vibe about the league, and then all of a sudden, the Whalers start signing some big-name players. They signed about 3/5 of the Toronto Maple Leafs defense, Tommy Webster, Larry Plow with Montreal Canadiens. So I started to get some interest going, and I watched the very first game in October of '72, and Derek Sanderson and Andre Lacroix played for Philadelphia, and I was just fascinated about the whole ability to start something from scratch like that, start a whole league from new, all these pioneers coming over. Recently you talk about how important, a lot of those guys came into the league after Bobby Hull had signed with the Winnipeg Jets, which really launched the World Hockey Association. But recently I was talking to, and you see how important this is to today's players. I was talking to Tim Sheehy. Now Tim's an agent now. I played with the Whalers and had 2 go-arounds with the Whalers, U.S. Olympian in '72. But he was talking about when in 1972, he had an offer from the Detroit Red Wings, who held his rights, for $7,500 a year, which he probably would have spent in the minors in Kansas City, or jump to the World Hockey Association for $100,000. So you can see what, for that type of player back in those days, the whole economic structure had changed. And the servitude that the players were suffering under in the National Hockey League was broken by the WHA. So, and of course the NHL fought tooth and nail to protect those contracts and protect the collective bargaining agreement with their players. So with all that as a backdrop, the Whalers, had the best team in the entire World Hockey Association, and had an NHL caliber team at that point. It's, had real good interest in Boston at that time. Boston was hockey crazy. The Whalers we get a chance to see because we couldn't get into the Boston Garden. You couldn't get a ticket. So we went to see the Whalers with our church groups, Boy Scouts or whatever. And it was great hockey. And they eventually, of course, took it all the way, won that first championship that first year. But the economics of hockey in Boston were, if you can imagine playing in the building of a chief rival who you're trying to take players in attendance from, the Leafs was backbreaking, and they went to Springfield and eventually here. But it was, to me, I loved the early days of the WHA. There was a real pioneering attitude among the guys. You talk to them even now. Mm-hmm. There's a real camaraderie because they went out and they took a real chance because none of them knew if the team they were going to make it through the season. And if the WHA had failed, a lot of them would have been out of work permanently. Mm-hmm. The nice thing about the Whalers, and as it relates to Hartford, is that the Whalers were the beacon of the World Hockey Association. They were the picture of stability. The Whalers in Hartford was the town that people wanted to play in. That's how Gordy, Mark, and Marty Howe got here. Andre Lacroix eventually, when they became free agents, Hartford's where you wanted to play because it was the most financially sound, had great attendance. And people forget about that again. The old Civic Center held 10,507 people, and the Whalers filled those on a regular basis. And when the roof caved in 1978, the Whalers were really peaking in the WHA. They just had the house. They had the best team in the league at that point, and the fans followed the team up by 91 to Springfield, of all places, which says a lot. And so that's my experience, and that with so many people, as these fans here are so resilient. You're in the World Hockey Association, which was shaky enough as it is. The roof caves in. I mean, imagine that. The entire roof caves in. Yeah. And you're off on the road again. But from that circumstance, the team get into the National Hockey League and was supported well in the beginning, despite the ineptitude of the team on ice. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the Whalers started to produce a good product on the ice, it went from your basic 11,000 people every night to 15. Mm-hmm. And by 87, 88, we pretty much sold out every game.
Wow, that's awesome. And I remember working there, and it was very simple to sell season tickets. People were calling you. You know, you had to use your leads and so on, but they would call you because they wanted to be part of a winning club, just like you see with UConn and that type of thing. We have a very fickle fan base, and you know, if you're not doing well, you're not going to get them. But when you're on top, everyone wants to be with you. And you know, I saw it firsthand when selling those season tickets, and it puts a real charge into the team when they have a full house every night.
Right. Yeah, you look at those video clips we put up there, Whaler Nation, and you know, the nice part about it is you see the reaction of the people, the noise. That's what I always remember. I remember when we played Quebec, it was Game 6, the ill-fated 1987 playoffs. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be assisting Hockey Night in Canada that night because we were shorthanded and I had to help them. And I was upstairs in the building, and it was so loud. I could not. We ended up losing 7-5, but I couldn't hear myself think. I couldn't communicate with the truck with the headphones on. It was so loud. It was like raucous, and so you know it's there. You've seen it, and as I've said many times, it's really unfair to Hartford fans when you look at the attendance figures through the early '90s, and particularly this team was not only bad on the ice. I mean, you had guys getting arrested, and the community involvement had deteriorated. The whole thing went south. But as we talked in the previous half hour, a lot of franchises have been through worse circumstances, but were able to pull through. They had community involvement, businesses or whatever, and they survived it. You know, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, LA, whatever. Hartford didn't get that opportunity, unfortunately. But I have no doubt in my mind that if the NHL opportunity came back again, that the fans would support this thing tremendously. The question would be, is the corporate support? You know, would the corporations be there as they were before? It's a whole different landscape right now. That would be the question. It's a legitimate question to ask. I don't have any doubt you would get 16,000, 17,000 people in here. Mm-hmm. But you know, would you have the corporate support? You know, that's the question.
Right. And I think the big question is 16,000, 17,000. Are we going to be able to do that with the current facility, or do we have to go to the next level with a brand new facility?
Well, I think you have to go. I envision a building that's maybe not in downtown Hartford, maybe a little bit west. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to have to the age-old, you know, conundrum of getting, you know, that hockey rabid, at least participatory part of the state. You know, it's either Quinnipiac or Yale. The amateur hockey is strong in the West. Mm-hmm. Somehow get a part of that, you know, here to support the NHL. I think you need it. And if you had a building that was, you know, 25 miles west of Hartford or whatever, theoretically speaking, would that help you bridge that gap?
Is there still room out in Rensselaer? Is Rensselaer a location that has been discussed? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't. I used to always joke.
I mean, they have a lot of land out there.
Right. Joke with Mike Crusher about getting the roof, the roof built on that place. But
I mean, I think it would be a shame. This is my personal opinion only that they took it out of Hartford. But Hartford has a lot of problems with parking. It's not very friendly to the fans when it comes to parking and that type of thing. I don't know if there is a way to bring in the parking with your purchase of your ticket, if there's any type of deals you can do. I don't know, you know, how that works, but, you know, Someone said it on one of our other shows. You remember how they used to do the payroll deduction for season tickets? I don't know if that works on an AHL level, or can it work on an AHL level? To make it more easier for the fan.
Right.
I have to see. These are all things that hopefully, if the NHL decides to keep Hartford on the radar, that we look at.
Yeah, I think the landscape, of course, has changed since the Whalers left. I think fans are used to certain amenities and ease. Again, apples and oranges, but as far as having a basketball tournament at Mohegan Sun, for myself personally, when I go to Mohegan Sun for a sporting event with my family, it's so easy. I mean, it's easy in and easy out, and it's free parking, and when you're there, it's like, ironically, like the old Hartford Civic Center. Within the mall, you can go to eat, you go to shop, and that was the beauty of it. Before is that way ahead of our time.
One stop.
People used to be derisive and call it the mall and things like that, but now, that's the norm.
It's preferred,
Yeah, exactly. I used to eat on a roll right downstairs from around a corner from Chuck's. I'd grab on a roll, I'd grab a hot dog down there at lunchtime, and it was a great place. You could do whatever you wanted. A lot of people were down there from other businesses. I mean, you got to see.
Yeah. Well, 40 nights a year, they got an upgrade in commercial business within the mall.
Oh, sure. Wendy's was there. Wendy's you go to.
Right.
What was it? Gaetano's up top. You're talking that. A lot of business.
I mean, they were great stores. I mean, maybe some of them were a little bit more on the high end, I guess, it's something. And I think that's what at least what I've heard is that Northland was hoping to get, I guess, like high end businesses, into the mall. But it really probably is better suited, and at least for traffic and for hockey events, maybe to something that kind of more along the lines of.
You definitely need a pub in there.
Yeah,
you need a sports bar in there.
Yeah, you do.
To dress things up. If we had the hockey back, NHL level, bring back that nice Whalers gift shop with the whale on the outside. That's a staple.
It was so awesome. Important. As a young fan, when I would come here, that was almost like an outreach store. In other words, that was like I would come in there so often and buy so much as a 13 or 14-year-old kid. They knew me, and that's how you found out information about the team and you see what's new and what's happening. But that was your first exposure. That was a hands-on exposure to the Whalers organization, the merchandise, and everything was right there. And I ended up working there when I was in college, and just at Christmas time, people come in like Billy Dunn and Billy Joel coming in.
Oh yeah.
Wow. It was just like, if you had a store like that now, it would be crazy.
Mike Reddy. Did he run that?
Mike Reddy ran that. Mike was an original New England Whaler who came to the store, and Joan Hayes, who worked with him, were fantastic.
Oh, they were. I loved going in that shop. Oh, it was great. Yeah. And for a little while after that, they kind of kept that same location. So before hockey games, you'd go in there.
Right. Yeah.
It's unfortunate. I understand Northland owns the atrium, or there's some, back and forth, but it just looks like an industrial mess out there.
It's highly unfortunate. I think, to the best of their ability, Global will make an impact. I mean, they rent out the atrium for the hockey season, or for the entire year for whatever purposes, but it doesn't address the issue of the storefronts and all that empty space. And like you said, the antiseptic feel when you walk in there. And that experience, boy, I'll tell you what, you had, if you had like the Hall of Fame display like they used to have out there, you bring in the heritage of hockey, there's so much you can do in that atrium. That's the biggest frustration, and that was the biggest glaring difference when I came back to Hartford from, not being here since the NHL days. You walk in that atrium and it was just flat.
Gray.
Now with the Whale, and I'm sure with Global, we had the big, huge slap shot and inflatable.
Right.
Try to bring a lot of that fun back on game nights, but there's nothing like permanence.
Yes.
If you're here for a UConn game, they have a nice display on the wall, and it'd be nice to see the Hall of Fame thing like they used to have, or go into like a Whalers gift shop or whatever to purchase UConn things or whatever the heck. Yeah. But that's a big issue. They've got to somehow reach an accord with Gottslinger. Somebody has to make it an impression there that this is make or break. Enough's enough, and it's best for everybody to bring life back into that building again.
Right.
Well,
right.
that building and the city. I mean, when UConn plays, when you have concerts, the city thrives.
Right.
I mean, you talk to the shop owners, whether it's the restaurants or the clothiers downtown. They thrive when there's 16,000 people there.
Right.
Who's going to go for a drink after the game? Who's going to maybe a late dinner, whatever. Saturday nights, people want to go out. They just want, Hartford, unfortunately at this point, and I know you saw it when you were downtown, is 5 o'clock. You can't get a cup of coffee. 5 o'clock, boom, close up. Let's go to bed.
Yeah.
Really? No. There's so much
it's,
more.
Hartford deserves more. The people here deserve more. And even on game nights, I say to myself, when the game is over, let's say we have a Sunday afternoon game at American Hockey League. Game's over. Where do you take your kids? You want to go out grab a bite to eat?
Right.
It's very difficult in Hartford.
Oh yeah.
And it shouldn't be. And there's enough good people in Hartford. We've met them all. I with Jim Lewis and guys of that nature, guys who really care, guys who've been here when it's at its peak. You see what happens in Providence, cities like that. I mean, Hartford has strong demographics, the greater Hartford area, a lot of very well-educated, hard-working people here. And Hartford deserves better than to roll the sidewalk up at 5 o'clock. And I felt, we were getting there as a city in the past. I know we can get there again. You got to believe in it. You got to be positive, and you got to be willing to take a chance on Hartford again.
Right.
And I believe it'll happen. And when it does happen, from a hockey standpoint, it's not going to be like before, because now I think people would never let it go again. You've seen what it was like to let go of a major league franchise. You may never get it back, and some cities never get it back. But if you had that chance again, I think people would latch onto it.
Right.
Yeah, I think so too. And with iQuilt, with the Bushnell Park Foundation, with the busway that's going to bring people into the city, the colleges are moving downtown. Central's building a building downtown. UConn's bringing a law school in the West Hartford branch downtown. You're going to have there's an opportunity to get young people downtown again.
Right.
And hopefully this is the first in many positive steps forward with this going forward. I mean, there's a 417 unit apartment down where the old WFSB building was,
Columbus,
the broadcasting house.
Right.
That's a step in the right direction when you get into that happening.
Right.
So hopefully they're planning for the future of young people being downtown.
Even the Hartford Times building.
UConn was looking at that too.
They were looking at that too, but also was the Hooker Ale Brewery Company.
Oh, that's right.
It'd be nice to have a place downtown where they could have a brewery. They can, invite some tourism, because currently they have something where they have a tourism thing, but it's set up on weekends and evenings.
Right.
And they bring in hundreds of people, but they want to do it now downtown.
Sure.
Which would be a great thing.
Absolutely.
And that Hartford Times building is a historical kind of building for the city.
I talked to a guy the other night from the Hartford Beer Company. He was a season ticket holder for the Whalers, and I asked him to come on the show and talk about his experience as a Whaler fan and what he's currently doing with his business downtown. And he agreed to come on. So it's going to be neat to kind of get these business people downtown to come onto the show and explain what they've envisioned for the future from a business aspect. And Jennifer DeBella, the president of the Bushnell Park Foundation, wants to come on. You talk about community. This is all community. We're all working towards Hartford being a major league city again.
Absolutely. That's the spirit of Whaler Nation. That the spirit of it is that things are going to get better. It's not about, as we discussed in the first half, it's not about living in the past and reliving old things that aren't going to happen again. It's about Hartford. It's about hockey. It's about thinking big. Thinking big. I said last time when we talked, when I would come down to games from Massachusetts as a kid, you come down to 84 and come over that ridge and I'd look down at the city of Hartford. I would just say to myself, hey, it's big leagues, man.
Yeah.
We're in Hartford. I'm going down to see Lemieux, Gretzky, Howe, Hull, whoever.
Right.
But you knew you were going to see big leagues, and you did see big leagues. You saw the NHL All-Star game here. You saw the playoffs here. You saw the NHL Draft was here. You saw the Canada Cup with the Soviet Union here. Because Hartford at the time was, from a hockey standpoint and from an overall community standpoint, it was thinking big. Thinking bigger thoughts, thinking about getting better. And now there's a lot of skepticism, derision, whatever you want to say, but there's enough people who really believe in it. And for what we can do at Whaler Nation, excuse me.
Got him talking too much tonight.
We, at Whaler Nation, that's the whole point of it, is that, Hartford is a big league city in all aspects.
Right.
And that's how we feel about it. And that's not to say that you don't come out and support the American hockey. Like, it's great hockey. It's great pro hockey. Love being in the building, and we support all of that. But as our basic tenet here is, I believe that Hartford's a big league city.
Yeah.
And we'll be again with the right people making the right decisions.
Right. It was, I listened to ESPN Radio. There's a guy called Colin Cowherd. He does a radio show.
Yeah.
And I just want to give him credit because he came up with this theory. And I think Hartford is one of these two fans. He says there's two kinds of fans. There's smart fan and true fan. Now, smart fan is only going to show up if the goods are there. In other words, if the team's doing well, if they're winning and they're on the up. And then, true fan is going to show up no matter what, like the Chicago Cubs or if we wanted to take it AHL level, like the Hershey Bears. Those fans are always going to show up. Hartford's a little bit more of a smart fan market. You saw that, like you brought up about in the 90s when the attendance dipped. The team had dipped. They had traded away their star players. And, that all was it. And so Hartford's going to, it's the type of people will put up their money, but they just want to put it up for the product that they want.
Right.
It's just got to be competitive. It doesn't have to be, a top 4 team.
Yeah, and the team
if they're,
was
fighting for a playoff spot, that'll get people interested. They'll be there. But if it's a team that's going to flounder in the bottom,
yeah, and it was it was a constant series of negative events. I mean, it wasn't like it was an aberration.
No,
it was like the end of from 1990-91 on. You could feel it in 1990-91. Being here, you could feel like the economic conditions and the team's performance dipped simultaneously. Right. And I remember being in the Whalers offices and the panicked meetings about what do we do to get fans here? What it was just and
it started to come around. Just before the team left. The 94, 95, 96. The team was starting to get better. They were starting to play better. They were kind of working their way back a little bit.
The attendance went up.
Yeah, the attendance was well, and when they started talking about the team leaving, then people were starting to step up even more because it's like, well, we're not happy that the team is not well stocked, but we don't want them to leave. But it was
never the fans' fault.
No, that's a misconception.
It really is, and to give credit where credit's due, I think Hartford, and correct me if I'm wrong, has a very passionate fan base when it comes to the Whalers specifically. They might have been bummed out at the team, but they never left the Whalers side.
No, and you can see that now. We're still talking about it, and it's
and people hit us up all the time. It's funny. I put a post out there the other day, and it was one of those things where I said, Hartford is a major league city on many levels. And a couple negative shots came in about hockey. You can't keep NHL hockey here, this, that, the other thing. But the thing is that Whaler Nation is part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Right.
We're moving forward. And, like I've said before, whether it's been on this show or another show, you can either get on the bus and join us or get the heck out of our way. The bottom line is you're either with us or you're not. Right. And, a lot of our Hartford Whaler fans are just waiting to be accepted again as Hartford Whaler fans and celebrate the Whalers name, the tradition, and where we're going from here. And, Mark started a big thing with the Whale and the Whalers tradition. So
Yeah. I mean, the Whaler Nation site has just been incredible since it's taken off. Everyone is pretty much aware of it. I mean, I can't remember how we are on Facebook, but I think it's something close to 10,000 people. And that's it started with nothing. So it's impressive.
It's been again. It's like one of those many things. When we came back here to this marketplace, we didn't know what to expect, and people misread a lot of what happened with the Connecticut Whale. We really did make hockey more relevant in Hartford because it had, again, not criticizing the Wolfpack or any of the fans or anything, because they're some of my best friends, but the hockey had become irrelevant here. You particularly saw that in the corporate community, and we had so many big events and some big news, and we brought the Mark Howes back, Nick Futius and Pat Verbeeks, guys like that, to reintroduce them to the marketplace, which they did enthusiastically. And the Whale Bowl was a huge undertaking, to say the least. It was not a disaster by any stretch of the imagination that people make it out to be. It was a very successful 2 weeks of amateur hockey, and we had, a very, very trying day on the Whale Bowl day, but still, it was nice to be part of an event like that. We really gave it everything we had to showcase Hartford hockey, to the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
We were very, very proud of that, and that's again going back to what we were talking about before. I want to keep that going because so much good happened. So many good people stepped up and really put their passion behind this thing. And really, you guys are great examples of that. And I refuse to just let that go away. I just said with so much goodwill, this is no way we're walking away this time. And we're just going to keep pushing and pushing. And I'm glad you guys are doing what you're doing because it's been huge.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun working with you and reconnecting with you on this level with the history of Hartford hockey, specifically with the Whalers, New England Whalers. And hopefully at some point we can get some alumni on the show or out in the community. I think there's people out there kind of like Christmas Day, waiting for that package to arrive and see what what you're getting under the tree. And I think there's so many Hartford Whaler fans, New England Whaler fans out there that are still looking for their heroes to come back, and just like at Rensselaer Field. I mean, everyone who was there had a blast.
Right.
It was hot. They stuck around. The players were just great. They stuck around for what, 5 hours?
Yeah, 5 hours of blistering heat, and they enjoyed every minute of it. Not one complaint from anybody. I went ahead, I went around to everybody and said, can you help it? Because I was never so happy as when I saw that crowd. It was unbelievable. Like we talked about it. It was thrilling. But then I was also scared to death because I'm like, we had these guys here for 2 hours scheduled. And there was just no way.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been a riot. I mean, it would have been unbelievable.
And they must have loved the stories these people told.
Oh, absolutely. Every one of those guys loved staying the overtime. They didn't have any complaints whatsoever because, as I said before, they didn't know what the response was. They didn't think or know if anybody cared about the Whalers anymore. And they found out, firsthand that people really cared. And that weekend, remember, began with a reunion dinner that we had over at the Marriott, which was sold out, for the Arthritis Foundation.
Yep.
They raised, well into the six figures that night.
Wow. Oh,
And so that was a weekend,
great.
not just a night, and it was huge, and we're going to do it again.
That's great.
That's great.
That was a blast. It
Yeah.
was really a
Yeah,
great
looking forward to
weekend. If you didn't have to put up with Mother Nature, I'm sure there would be a lot more people out there. And the guys looked like they had a really good time.
Yeah, and they'll come back again. They like I said, it was all for charity, of course, and they were happy to be here, happy to reconnect. And I talk to these guys on a regular basis, and they would love to come back.
Oh, great.
I hope we can do it.
Well, we are going to send off another show of Whaler Nation TV. We thank Mark Wallon for joining us and Peter Hindle. And then we will bleed green under one nation, Whaler Nation. Have a good night.